Okay. All right. This is The Grass is Greener on WXRW 104.1 FM in Milwaukee. I am the host of the program, Gary Grass. With me is my co-host, Babette Gruneau.
Hi, and tonight we have Mike McCallister. He's the recording secretary of the Wisconsin Green Party, a longtime activist who we've known for quite a while, for independent working class political action. And he will serve as a real elector for the Green Party should the Green Party nominee come in as the top getter of the popular vote in Wisconsin. So, welcome, Mike McCallister.
All right. Okay. I'm hearing a little
Mike?
hiss, but...
Can we hear you?
Yep, I can hear him. Okay.
We're hearing also a little hiss somewhere, so I don't know what that is, but...
Oh, it's gone now.
Probably the AC, but...
All right.
So
No. It wasn't the AC. There's some audio issue. But, that's... we're local community radio. This is what you get sometimes. It's not a problem. It's for all. It sounded pretty good right now. So obviously we wanted to talk about the elections, which I can't really use on the radio some of the terms that would naturally come to mind describing the 2004 U.S. elections. S show, cluster F, things like that I think are appropriate terms for this time around. I think, if the United States were a third world country, we'd be an embarrassment to third world country elections right now. So, I don't know if you have particular thoughts on this, but we could go through all the different aspects of how this has been such a kind of a horrendous embarrassment of an election. You have any comments before we jump into some of these?
Well, it has certainly been an interesting 6 months or so. It looked like things were going to be endless reruns. And then suddenly, there was this television show that wasn't a rerun, but certainly made things a whole lot different, didn't they?
Well, it's definitely a sequel. When we had Seymour Hersh on this program a while ago, he made this sort of the very advanced prediction that he thought the nominees would wind up being Trump and Biden again, and this was kind of a like, oh no, we have to do this again. But it turns out that no, it won't be Biden. Biden was gonna. I actually I never saw Weekend at Bernie's when it was out in theaters or on home video or anything, but I made it a point to go dig that up because I wanted to understand how our system of government works in the United States. I thought they were just going to carry this guy around for the until November, and apparently that became untenable for them, and they finally had to kick him out. But it was like you see what you typically see in the among the sort of Democratic Party. The like really captive portion of the base where they'll just flip positions on a dime. Like, it was keep Biden. It's like, oh no, Biden's gone. Yay. It's great that Biden's gone. It's like, where were you 10 minutes ago? But now it's like all...
I just couldn't believe it that they wouldn't even have a real primary. That they wouldn't have people... someone opposing him, and allowing
besides the Minnesota congressman who sacrificed his career.
Yeah.
What was his name again?
Phillips something.
Dean something.
Yeah.
Howard Dean Phillips. Howard Phillips. I don't know. So it's like, that guy, and of course there's RFK Jr.
who was in and out.
Who's
and now in a independent position.
Yeah, and of course you're coming to us from the Green Party, so there are There is Jill
There are
Stein,
other options.
right? There's other people are promoting Claudia de la Cruz, who seems pretty good. But I mean, the Democratic Party was just very eager to have no challenger to Biden. Um, and I don't just mean no challenger within the Democratic Party. It was like, we don't want to have any sort of real primaries in the Democratic Party. We don't want to have any other candidates. We don't want any other candidates who might pop up to get any press time. We'll do whatever we can to destroy any other candidates, and we will try to lock Trump up and disqualify him from being president, and we'll try to keep anyone from a third party from gaining ballot access. I mean, it was like they just wanted to control the.
Well, that last part is what they do every year. But
I mean, it just seemed much worse this year. I mean, it's like, at least before Biden, it was like. You had a primary system, and then they had to get everyone together, and close ranks to keep Bernie from getting it, right? It's like, everyone drop out of the race and throw it all to Biden, because Biden is the only guy who can do it, and he, it's like, give him all the money, and give him, all of your support, and get everyone coalescing behind Biden, because he's the only thing that's, that stands between us and Bernie Sanders, which would be, oh no, Bernie Sanders. I mean, and it's like, this time around, it was just like, no, it's going to be a coronation. We're not, no, we're not going to have any debate. Oh no, we're not going to do that. And it's like, so that was it. I mean, it's just like, it's concluded in advance by the party royalty, and the people in the party don't get any sort of say at all. And and then Kamala just comes down the pike and gets the dedazo, and instantly raises $20 million in cash in the first 10 hours, and they're like, oh yay, she's got all the money. It's like, yeah, she's just been bought by somebody, and you're just celebrating it. You'll have no power in this party at all. You just take whatever slop they feed you, and you just run with it. I mean, it's just
Let me just explain. The dedazo is a
thank you.
mechanism in
yeah. That
in-
requires some explanation.
in Mexico where the party there, the
The institutionalized party of the revolution. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
At one point used to have the
They controlled the country for years and years.
Right.
They
And-
won every
Almost
election
100.
by fraud. They prevented any sort of challenging candidates. And the
then
president would just
give his finger, so to
Right.
speak. He would point out who would be his
Yeah.
successor.
Delo's finger, and Dedazo
Oh, yes.
is the big finger that the president uses to appoint his successor, so that there's no actual democratic process in the party, and that's what we had here. So I mean, to me, it's like the whole thing is just, there's nothing democratic about any of this. And I mean, we can talk about the Republican side of this too. I mean, it's like, it's like everything from Trump sort of just wandering into the convention and saying, here's the platform that you will follow, and it's like everyone has to bow to Trump and get out of the way. And there was a few people that were floating as challengers, and of course they did what they all did last time, which was they sort of mounted this sort of theatrical race to kind of establish themselves, and then they all quickly bowed out and swore their allegiance to Trump. But I mean, this whole thing about trying to utilize the courts as a way of gaming the election, trying to keep him out through criminal charges. I mean, many of which I think are probably justified. I mean, I hear people on the Republican side saying that they're all fraudulent, made up, and stupid. But I mean, I don't think that at all. I mean, I think they're much farther from open and shut than the Democrats think. But I think they're worthy lawsuits. I don't think that it was necessarily a great strategic thing from an electoral perspective to make him the big victim and use this for fundraising, and then not be able to take it anywhere in the end anyway. But I mean, it just it has a certain feel that I think a lot of people around the world, even if they even if they think the charges may have some merit, it still looks like they're just using the courts as a way to get around having any sort of challenge in the election, and doing it through like a very blunt means that is very kind of seems very new and very suspicious compared to what they typically do, which is, mount every sort of conceivable challenge to people getting ballot access, which is what they always have done against the Greens. I don't know if you want to talk about what they've done to Jill Stein in this whole thing.
Well, let me go back 4 years and remind you that the Greens were thrown off the ballot last time. Our candidate Howie Hawkins and his Wisconsin-based candidate, or at least who ran against Sheriff Sheriff, what's his name?
Sheriff Clark, right?
Yeah, Sheriff Clark ran for sheriff from the transit union. Yeah,
you're talking about Angela Walker ran against Sheriff Clark, right?
Thank you, Angela Walker. Yes. So we were supposed to get 2,000 signatures. We submitted 4,000, but the problem was Angela moved 6 blocks away from one house to another in South Carolina, where she was and still is, and we had to. We were told by staff that we had to make a new set of petitions with the correct address on it. So we did that, and then they ruled us off the ballot because the Democrats claimed they did not know where she lived.
Well, it's Democrats not knowing something is suspiciously plausible there.
Well,
I mean, they didn't know
tell
because they
them.
didn't want to know. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
it's very easy to stick your head in the sand. I mean, I think that's
Right.
sort of an important qualification to being in the leadership of the Democratic Party.
So they ruled the whole party off, not just the vice presidential candidate.
Right? Yeah, we because they run as a in tandem, just like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And so we were thrown off ballot, and we lost, and were and lost our ballot status that we had to get back again 2 years later. Fortunately, we did that. So,
have you
our
had any
nominee
troubles this time
and
around?
technically Jill Stein is not our nominee yet. We haven't had our convention, but as with many other things in this election year, she is the presumptive nominee, having won a majority of the convention delegates up for grabs.
By the way,
So
when is your
anyhow-
convention? When is your convention?
It is in 2 weeks on the.
Well, we're
It's 50. It's the 15th through the 18th of August.
okay. Yeah.
So very close to the Democrat convention.
Yes.
Yeah. It's July. I want to say it's July 30th today.
Before the March.
I just want to say it was July 30th today as we're talking about this. Just, in case anyone listens to this when it isn't live anymore, right?
Yes. August 15th through 18th. We continue to have a virtual nominating convention because Greens don't usually have a whole lot of money. to travel around the country and get hotel rooms and all of that
Understandable.
stuff. And so, you know, convention and visitors bureaus don't shower money on us to have their convention here or anywhere else.
Well, yeah, I mean the RNC. I mean, Milwaukee gets all these big conventions. I mean, we had the DNC before during COVID, which didn't quite actually happen, and then we had the RNC just this time, and that was an interesting spectacle to say the very least. Um, but I mean, what? But it's. I mean, what are they? I mean, I thought they were making strong efforts to, or use even new and more novel legal tactics to kick the Greens off the ballot all over the country this time around.
There's been mostly they've been the traditional tactics, which the New York State uh, tripled its required signatures.
Ooh, that could be a lot.
We again, Howie Hawkins basically said that the new signature requirements were worse than in Russia.
Ah, well, which you could easily probably look that up and find out what the signature requirements are in Russia. I don't know them offhand, but well, yeah. I mean, you compare the United States with other countries. I mean, it's like, I mean, one of the things I've been thinking about. I mean, obviously, as we're talking here, we're just probably 24 hours after the results of the Venezuelan election,
Right.
Yes.
and we may in fact have a brief visit with our South American correspondent later in the hour. We may or may not. It's we'll see what the conditions are like down there. I mean, but we have sent him the link just in case he wants to give us a brief update on that. But I mean, Venezuela, is sort of has like the kind of ideal election system in many ways. I mean, they've got this instant auditing process. Everyone gets a receipt for their ballot. Everything goes in electronically and is automatically recorded, and it's got this paper trail where you can back it up that the voter keeps their receipts, and it's like it's a direct election, so that they're not constantly waiting on finding out whether 20 votes in this province or that province is going to shift their electoral college, because they don't have an electoral college. They just have like what most normal countries have, which
And
is
they don't have to wait for trucks with ballots to come in from the hinterland, so to speak, and because it is electronic.
yeah. And it's, I mean, their election machines, I mean, because there is a paper trail, and because they are like kind of instantly audited constantly throughout the election process, you don't have to worry so much about some sort
it's
of
both.
internet hacking, right? They
Right.
can
Right.
I mean, it's like but in this country, I mean, we've had so many things that are already wrong with our elections, and then so many things that are not really wrong with our elections, but which are kind of constantly spread around in order to undermine the integrity of the elections, right? Where they say that all the Dominion voting machines are programmed to vote for Biden, and that it turns out that it's just complete total nonsense, and all the institutions that made that claim are facing enormous libel judgments. And just stuff that's completely ridiculous about this type of fraud and that type of fraud that never occur, and then of course the types of measures that they promote in order to like secure against these sort of non-existent forms of fraud are like to massively disenfranchise millions of voters. So it's like we've got all of this sort of everything that seems to be trying to do it through legal means, and fighting over this and fighting over the way the game is fought, and fighting over the rules, and fighting over the mechanics of it. And and when it's not talking about the mechanics of it, it's talking about this individual person is bad this way and that way, and no one talks about policy practically at all, right? It's all, this person's a felon, this person's a
Absolutely.
this person's a that, right?
Well, that's always the problem, particularly with the Democratic Party, because regardless of of who's at the top of the ballot, you're still going to get U.S. arms to abet genocide, deliver billions in subsidies to fossil fuel companies, and just wreak havoc on the border for people who are just trying to survive.
Yeah, I mean, and look at, Biden's policies on the border were like, like so many different things that he was doing. It was sort of like give with one hand and take away with the other hand.
They were basically left over from Trump. I mean, we thought they'd be different.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he built a lot of Trump's wall. He tried to use Title 42 to keep people out because of COVID, right? He did all sorts of things, and then he would also have these like little measures to make things easier, and it was just like this constant like, do something on one side to sort of promote yourself as still being tough on the border, and then do something on the other side to show that you're fixing all the Trump problems. But basically all the Trump problems are continuing, and things are in some ways getting worse. And it's like, there's no consistency at all. In fact, there were news reports circulating a year ago about how people in the Biden administration were confused because different agencies were given conflicting orders to do like clearly opposite things that were going against one another, and it's like, yeah, I mean, there is so much consistency. I mean, I want to sort of address like the whole theatrical aspect of these elections and the extent to which they seem to be just sort of a game to divert people. I mean, I know that there are, on one hand, people that have a very reductionistic view that say nothing's really at stake in the presidential election. The president really doesn't do anything anyway, and this whole thing is just a big show for the masses, and it doesn't actually decide anything. And then you've got people that are like really involved in policy who are like, well, this is what'll change if we don't have this person instead of that person. I mean, they follow some of these issues. They follow whatever particular issue is very, very closely and directly and say, well, I know the position of this party, and I know the position of that party, and I know the position of this candidate, and I know the position of that candidate, and I have experience lobbying on the Hill for these things, and I know that if this person gets in or that person gets in, it will make my job this much easier or this much more difficult. And there really is a big difference. And so the emphasis is completely in the other direction. But, I mean, it seems to me like that there's, the reality is somewhere in between, where there's this combination of the two.
Folks who say if Trump gets in, it'll be fascism tomorrow, and it's like, isn't that taking it a bit over the top? Maybe, maybe not.
Well, I mean, and that's an example of, taking something that has some little semblance of reality behind it and expanding it into something that's just purely just hysteria to drum up the base and get people to like ignore your own problems, ignore the problems with their candidates so they can focus on how bad the other side is. And that's just a routine that's used every time to get people to ignore their interests and vote for someone that's not good. But I mean, I kind of wanted to talk about some of those particular things. I mean, we're babbling here. We need to give Mike a chance to input something in all this.
There is a lot there.
Yeah, I know.
But again, it all comes down to what are the priorities?
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly Biden is, as he reminds us several times a week, the most pro-union president we've ever had. Surprisingly enough, there's not a lot of competition for that particular job.
Yeah.
Not unlike We've done more to fight climate change than any other government on the planet. Once
Well,
again, there's
no.
really not a whole lot of competition
Well,
there.
China has done amazing things on that. Actually, I think if you're looking at China from like 1988, you'd say, "Well, what a horrible, horrible smog hole that all is." But if you're looking at them now,
True,
it's like they're
true,
so far
true.
advanced in green technology. They're supplying more green technology to the planet than I think every other country combined. I mean, they're way ahead of us in green technology, and we're like struggling to catch up with China.
True,
But
true.
if you look at
I
U.S.
take that back.
administrations, right? You look at U.S. administrations. You look at like we've done more than any other administration before this. It's like, well, that's probably very, very much true. Of course, the problem is much worse now than it was 4 years ago, or 8 years ago, or 12 years ago, or 16 years ago. So you'd expect more to be
Yes,
done.
and he refuses to do the one thing that will work.
Which is?
Because we're still granting
Oh yeah,
drilling leases.
Oh, right.
We are
yeah.
still, we're still, he may not say drill, baby, drill, but it sure as heck is happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's this
fracking continues to go on.
There's this huge distinction between what they say and what they do, and people just look at what they say. I mean, it's like Biden. Trump is the one that says "drill, baby, drill," and he says it a lot, right? And
It gets him applause at rallies.
and Biden just sort of like passes over the fact that he's granted more licenses than anyone else, right? This is there's a big boom right now in drilling.
And subsidy after subsidy, billions of and yet we see the result of those policies every single day on the news, except they don't talk about it. Wildfires and everything else. Hurricanes in April, for gosh sakes.
Yeah, I mean, we were treated. I think it was just last week. We had this like really beautiful sky with this like really, really reddish dot sun in the sky, and it was because of the wildfires in Canada that were like which were like down in Milwaukee. They were like you could see the smoke in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's incredible that all this is going on and just gets ignored. Given, I mean, I remember in the last debate, 40 years ago, Biden was proposing like this, green energy, investment that was supposed to be this unprecedented thing. And I forgot how much he said it was, but I just looked at the numbers of that. It was like what? Was that a 1,000 with a T or a million with an M? And you're spending, he goes in and spends $1 trillion on this and $1 trillion on that. And people don't really understand numbers, so they don't realize how minuscule any of this is compared to what he does, which is huge. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, if we could talk about Biden's whole, program and his whole legacy, there's so many things that that can be pointed to. I mean, if you'd say he's the best union president ever, it's like, well, he didn't exactly pass the Wagner
And just
Act.
because he showed up at a UAW picket line for about 5 minutes and didn't carry a sign.
Well, I mean, he appointed an SEIU guy to the NLRB, right? The National Labor Relations Board is always swings more towards the union when the Democrats are in office, and he appointed a good guy there, right? I mean, that's the SEIU is a really great union, and you can see that there's been some shift in the decisions up there, and that was a really important thing. But then he wanted to break the railroad strike. So I mean, it's like it's one of these things where like he's like goes
takes
part
with one
way,
hand and gives with another,
and people like refuse to look at the entire picture. They always want to caricature on one side or the other, and everyone sort of decides what his position is based on what particular bubble they're in. And it's like I just don't really see a whole lot of real honest evaluation from most people as to where he actually lands on any of this stuff. And with Kamala, it's like even more of a kind of a mystery because no one is really talking about what her actual record has been. I mean, that's sort of like everyone's sort of dusting off what they had from 40 years ago and trying to remember who she was, and it's like a lot of it was not good. And of course, it just the mere fact that
I've seen a poster where they made a collage of
the mosaic,
of Kamala, a portrait of Kamala Harris using photographs of people who she kept in jail after they had their sentences commuted.
And she argued in court that they needed to do that because they were getting paid 75 cents an hour or 8 cents an hour or whatever it was, or some wage in between there, and there would be an important loss of revenue for the prison system if they were to all just go. So
I believe it was 8 to 37 cents an hour.
8 to 37 cents, right? Okay, that was the range. Yeah, so I got the 8 right. But yeah, it's there's so many things and that are just, but it's like within the Democratic Party, you can't sort of face the bad parts about Kamala Harris at all. It's just, and to me, the whole way this process worked, right, where she is like accepting all of this, and kind of following the whole party orders, down the line, just like she's been kind of like played this sort of useful tool for Biden to float things and yank them back, and accepting this whole completely undemocratic means of ascending to the position is like, I mean, it's like, is that what you expect from someone who has any sort of shred of integrity? I mean, I don't really see this as a plus for her, and from anyone who's kind of looking at it objectively.
Well, a lot of people still feel that a lot of young voters, particularly, I think, feel that they haven't had a say, and they're concerned about things like the Gaza, the administration's policy towards Gaza and supporting what could be called a genocide.
Well, what clearly has been called a genocide and is been legally declared basically a genocide.
Okay.
I mean,
Yes, the International Court of Justice has at least named it plausible, and the criminal court is looking for a warrant.
Yeah, they keep getting stalled legally and before getting those indictments out. But yeah.
So a lot of people are still looking for some other option, because a lot of people voted for the uncommitted during the spring elections because they didn't want to vote for Biden because of the genocide in Gaza, and so now they're looking for something else. And I don't know, how many will be looking for third party or just not voting. But
and of course, the fear of the Democratic Party is if they have any sort of democratic process at all, then the people that are who knows what the Democratic base might pick if they actually had a choice, right? That's just too dangerous to allow. So they have to quick put someone in that spot and quick get everyone to jump to that person, so that the people can't have a say. Because they're worried about what the people might do. Because there's a lot of Democrats that never liked Biden for a lot of reasons, and especially with the whole support for Israel coming, becoming so important with the huge escalations that we've seen in the last year. I mean, the news from Israel has just been so disgusting right now. I mean, the whole country's being torn apart now over the right of soldiers to rape prisoners, which that's pretty clearly a war crime. But they had they've had stuff coming out. A lot of people in Israel, they like surveyed men 14 years ago and found that like most of them didn't think that it was really rape if you knew the person already, and they certainly don't think that it's rape if it's a Palestinian. So it's like just the elevation of incel culture in that country over the last 13 years has just been so grotesque, and now this is where they're at. They've turned the entire country into an enormous rape group, and we're sending them millions of dollars in arms so they can expand it over the bodies of people that have families in the U.S. And then they try to tell the family members of dead Gazans that they should vote for Democrat, just hold their nose and vote for the people killing their families. I mean, it's just so disturbing.
So if people are looking for another different thing.
It is why Jill has been doing reasonably well among young people in some of the polls that we see, as much as double digits, which granted ain't a lot, but it's a good sign that some people are actually looking for alternatives. The important, you always have to remember that the most important voting bloc there is every single time is the folks who don't vote, who don't
Right.
find any reason to go to the polls. Abstract appeals to defend democracy or participate in democracy doesn't work if absolutely nothing, that it doesn't matter who you vote for, things don't change.
Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons that I've been out here for how long it's been, and it's been a long time.
I think part of the game is to give people just enough change to keep them hooked, right? But not any more than necessary, right? So to say that there's no change kind of misstates the nature of the game. It's like the more people think that there's no change, the more there's going to be some change in order to try to trick people into really thinking, oh, maybe there really is some change, right? And the more people like accept that that it really is change, the less change you'll actually get. So there's this dynamic that goes back and forth that way, right? We should talk about this whole idea of, voting for the lesser evil, which, I think it makes perfect sense in some circumstances to vote for the lesser evil, or even in some circumstances to intentionally vote for the greater evil as a punishment to the lesser evil because they haven't given you enough at the negotiating table. But this idea that you cement yourself to the lesser evil at the first opportunity, throw away all of your bargaining chips on day zero, right? And and then just let them take you for a ride and stick with them no matter what they do. Just seems like why do you seek to disempower yourself so completely and thoroughly from the very beginning of this game, right? It's like, to me, it's just bewildering why anyone thinks that is a good thing to do, right? It's like you're giving away everything before you even start, and you're just making yourself a pawn and like giving away any power that you might have to press these people in any direction to help you at all.
Mm-hmm.
The Bernie-crats and some of the progressives seem to have done that this time. Having talked with quite a number of them.
Oh yeah, and the people up in D.C. AOC has been like particularly bad on this, right? She jumped on Kamala on day one, just like she jumped on Biden on day one, and then she tried to give this sort of video explanation of like why we shouldn't drop Biden now. Because it would have been okay a year ago when I was like telling everyone to jump on Biden and jump on the train before even knowing what was going on, right? And let's face it, they knew what was going on. I think that what happened with Biden. I mean, I guess Seymour Hersh says that there was a dramatic escalation in his condition, and that he got much worse, and that's what prompted them to like threaten the 25th Amendment on him and force him out. But I think what really happened is,
What really happened is that it became very publicly obvious because of the debate.
Well, it was obvious to a lot of people in public who weren't closed off in their bubbles, but
Right.
a lot of the donors were closed off in their bubbles, and they needed to see the debate to have their nose rubbed in just how bad he had been. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, finally, the donors spoke, and that's why it was somewhat unusual and somewhat unexpected that Biden's last defenders were the Progressive Caucus.
Oh, it's
because then they could argue that the big money's keeping is keeping all this disaster talk going on.
Oh, those damned elitists keeping pushing Biden out of the race when he was so progressive.
Maybe not.
I mean, I think. I mean, I've got. I mean, there's so much to unpack about this, the way this whole game gets played. I mean, one of the things about it is, I mean, obviously we can talk about how you get rid of all your political power on day one when you just decide on day one that you're going to vote for blue no matter who, right? And you can talk about how this causes the entire Overton window to shift, and for the nominees that they send every year to get further and further and further to the right, so that you're digging your own grave. There's a dialectic there where you keep on contributing to your own demise every time you do this over and over and over reflexively, and you need to be able to break that cycle somehow. So even if it doesn't seem like there's a hope of a third-party candidate winning, the other strategy is just long-term doom, right? You have to do something. And I think there's this whole thing about treating this election, whatever election is, every election is the most important in the history of the country. And it's the last election we'll ever have, right? And it turns out that the president really doesn't have the power to terminate the Constitution, right? Or whatever the weird stuff is that they're saying, right? To be dictator of the country. You're not electing a dictator. That's not how things work. Most of your political power doesn't come from voting for the president. It comes from other votes that you have for other candidates. It comes from lobbying that you do. It comes from being in the streets. It comes from giving money. It comes from all these different things that you can do. And the idea, I mean, I've got people that I know are going to be harmed by by the most likely outcome, which is that Trump will win this election, and they want me to vote for Kamala as a hedge against that, and I refuse to do that. But I just have to make it up to those people with making sure that I do extra protesting and lobbying and sending more letters and sending more money and doing everything I can to help the affected institutions to organize some self-help for themselves. I mean, there's so much that I can do that doesn't depend on this vote. I'm not going to vote for a candidate that's engaged in or supporting a genocide, because you think that's the best way to, you need all hands out for your particular rights, but not for these other people's, right?
And some of us would just like another option. So maybe we could all hear a bit about what option the Green Party has.
Let me tell you. So, like I say, a lot of people already know about Jill Stein, who didn't really want to run this year, but we had the well, let's not talk about it. Anyhow, so Jill ran. I
won't press you on what we're not supposed to talk about.
Brother Cornel West was persuaded to run for president back in February by some ex-Bernieites who pretended to create a something called the People's Party. Jill actually got on his staff and persuaded him to run for the Green nomination. And 2-3 weeks later, he decided that he didn't want access to all the Green Party's ballot lines, and chose to run as an independent.
Okay.
Now, I genuinely wish him luck. He's petitioning to get on the Wisconsin ballot as we speak, and Wisconsinites should have the ability to vote for him. And and he says good things, but he's in most presidential years he winds up endorsing the Democrat. And I always was a little bit worried that he would do the same thing in October of this year and dispose of all whatever momentum that he had gathered for our party.
Okay.
So anyway, so Jill became the leading candidate fairly quickly once that little diversion was over. She's been here twice. She has not named a running mate yet. She is doing, like I say, she's doing reasonably well among young people. Every email I get from her describes her as the pro-worker, anti-genocide climate action candidate. So those are the issues that she's focusing on.
Good issues.
Good issues. She said good issues.
Yes, she does. and she will have a good running mate. The ones that she has picked before have both been outstanding, and we'll see how things go this time. Also, want to tell you about closer to home. If you're listening and you know people in the 1st Congressional District, Racine, Kenosha, out to Janesville, and all of those folks should check out Chester Todd, a longtime community activist in Racine's African American community, a solid, he's a longtime advocate of reparations for the descendants of enslaved people. And he's been an active Green for about a year. A fantastic candidate who the National Party has featured him on a couple of national webinars, and he's also going to speak at the convention.
I endorsed him without knowing what race he was running in. I did actually look at a little bit of what he was saying, what his platform was, and I thought, okay, this is a good guy. I can click the button to endorse him. But I didn't ever actually know that he was running in the 1st District, so that's interesting.
Yes, he's running against Brian Stile, and he should win. He really should.
Yeah, well, if wishes were fishes, right? So,
just this Saturday, Jill Ferguson, a longtime environmental activist and badass grandma, announced her candidacy for governor in 2 years from now.
Well, she'll have to mend some bridges because she called me a sellout. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Jill. Yeah. But
I know she has been very big on uh,
the pipeline, right?
yeah,
Oh,
Yes,
line
line
five,
five.
line five.
on getting rid of line 5.
Yeah, and I mean, I should also I shouldn't dismiss the prospect of the Green Party in any of this stuff. I mean, I kind of laugh a little bit about that, but the fact is that so much of the dynamic that keeps third party candidates down is this sort of like third party syndrome, or third person syndrome. I don't know what it's called, but it's not the idea that you're one of the minor parties, but the idea that you might do one thing, but someone else is going to do something different, right? I won't vote for this person, not because I don't like her, but because I think that this other group of people will not also vote for her, right? And therefore, it'll be a waste of vote. It's all kind of this sort of game theory where you're sort of second guessing what everyone else will do, and you're not going to do it because someone else isn't going to do it. But they're only not doing it because you're not going to do it. And as long as you can both remain convinced that neither of you is going to do it, you don't do it. But you could both just do it, right? It just needs to be a little more, mobilizing of the sentiment that's already out there. And I think that's really, this is, I mean, so much of the political activity in this country is wasted on mobilizing people where they are. I mean, this is the Democratic Party, right? The Republican Party has tried to move people on ideas, and the Greens try to move people on ideas, but the Democratic Party just tries to kind of keep things stable and mobilize whatever support they already have, go wherever they think the support is going to be, cave into wherever the voters are, and just do that within certain grounds, because there's some things that they're afraid of the voters when it comes to things like moving it anywhere to the left. But they want to mobilize people on these like really small differences with the Republicans, and that's their whole game of the Democratic Party.
And that is why the Republican Party has consistently moved right, and the Democrats have moved right with them.
Right.
Remember when Ronald Reagan was he was going to end democracy?
Yes.
Yeah, well, and he gave speeches defending Social Security and the rights of immigrants. He looks like W.E. Du Bois compared to the people now, right? I mean, if he were running in the Democratic primaries, he'd probably be kicked out for being too far left. I mean, which
is what I used to say about Richard Nixon.
I mean, no, it's I mean, there's your great proponent of
environmentalism.
Yeah, I mean, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act. I mean, it's like if only we could have Nixon again. It's like Biden's done more for anyone since Nixon, right? I mean, it's but sad but true. I mean, it's like the Democrats don't do what they could do. I mean, part of the whole thing is, I mean, look, they had 50 years to try to codify Wade, right? Roe v. Wade. They could have done so many things, yes. Right? They you didn't like what the Supreme Court was doing. You could have made some efforts to reform the court back when you were in office, and now it's like on day one after the nomination, Kamala Harris is or Kamala Harris. I don't even know how you say candidate Harris's name. I'll be honest about that. I think just the wrong version is out there so much that it's easy to get them back and forth. But the she wants to do all these Supreme Court reforms, right? Most of which can't even legally be done, right? She wants to impose term limits. Well, that's against Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution. You can't just legislate that. I mean, no one knows what the limits of legislation. I mean, when they talk about
does Constitution say something about life terms?
Yes, it says that they shall serve for good behavior. You can impeach them, but they cannot ever be term limited. That's in the Constitution, Article 3, Section 1. People ought to read the Constitution now and then. I mean, I kind of wonder. There's so many things about this. I mean, obviously they leave Roe in jeopardy because that's what they fundraise on. That's what they run on. So if they fixed the problem, then they wouldn't have anything to run on anymore. Whereas Trump says,
well, that's why we don't have ranked choice voting either, because
that would be an interesting thing to have.
They keep complaining that
There are lots of things you could do good for the country, and then you couldn't fundraise off it. I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there that the Democrats are trying to lose because they could fundraise so much off of Trump that it's better to have them than to have an actual president in the White House, right? Which sounds a little conspiratorial, but I think on some circuits within the leadership of the Democratic Party, they really don't care that much. And I think the same is even true a little bit on the Republican side, because you see all these things that Trump is doing that's like, you're just feeding into the whole narrative against him. I mean, it's like he doesn't have to talk about being dictator on day one, right? I mean, everyone sort of takes that completely out of context. But I mean, at the convention, there were these big signs that said "dictator" on day one. I couldn't tell whether they were Democratic Party signs trying to scaremonger against Trump, or Trump trying to communicate to his people that he'll be a strong leader. I couldn't tell which it was. But I mean, the whole history of that narrative is that he's a dictator on day one means he's going to close the border and he's going to order drill baby drill. That's what he says it meant, right? And of course, I mean, it's like everything that the Democrats say about Trump is exaggerated in some way. I mean, or I'd say at least most of it. I mean, he's going to terminate the Constitution. Well, he didn't say he's going to terminate the Constitution. He says that if you have election fraud this vile, it warrants all necessary measures, including termination of other laws, which would include the Constitution. But it's like, well, he had a very specific thing that he was saying. And obviously the president can't just by executive order nullify the Constitution. And he didn't use the word terminate. I mean, there's so many things that are just so weird about all this.
I did want to say, if you have we are nearing the end of the hour. So if there is something you really want to get across to us, please say it now.
Yeah, you got about 2 minutes. We haven't let you talk very much.
Go check out chestertodd.org. Go check out the WisconsinGreenParty.org. If these ideas appeal to you, we have members control our party. So you will not get marching orders unless you want them.
Well, I think one problem with the country is maybe a lot of people want that. I mean, you see all these people falling into line. Then again, that ignores all the people that aren't part of that bubble, that don't go out and vote every 4 years, right? That that don't vote in any elections, mm-hmm. right? And it's a huge constituency, and it's really hard to mobilize people for that constituency because they're convinced that a third party can never win. They're convinced that elections are all a big fraud and that it's all not worth any effort because it never leads to anything anyway.
That's how you build. You start to build from the bottom up, from the grassroots.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the complaints I heard about the Green Party is that why is Jill Stein running for president? Why doesn't she try to run for governor or something first? And I have to say, I've seen Green Party candidates running at lower levels. I think they're doing it right. I mean, I think you need to run a president for visibility, but I think they also have a lot of efforts on lower level races. Anyhow, you got 30 seconds to respond.
You're absolutely right. People should go to the websites I just mentioned, and if they're interested in running for local office, we would love to hear from you.
All right. Well, you know what? Next time we have you on, we'll have to talk over you less and let you actually get a word in. But it was really great to have you.
Well, I'm just too damn polite. You know that.
Yeah, right. Mike McCallister, everybody.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Sure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.